How you doing? Actually, are you awake? Yeah, sorta. Okay, sorta. I'm Ryan Carson, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Treehouse, and we're an online school. And our goal is to take people from zero to job ready, and then put them in a job. And I'm not gonna talk much about Treehouse today. Instead, I'm going to talk to you about how we have no managers in our company. So we have about 70 employees now, and at 50 employees, we decided to remove all management, and I'm going to talk about the decision and how it works at our company. And I'm happy to answer questions about Treehouse, but this isn't a pitch or anything, so I'll show you a couple things about Treehouse, and then we'll move on to that. But before I move into that, how many of you are either running a company or thinking about running a company? Okay, how many of you are an employee and are going to stay as an employee, never going to start a company? One. Hey, I know you. Hey, how are you? Nice to see you, Kate. Yeah, you shouldn't raise your hand. So good. So this should be relevant to all you guys because I've run 4 companies, and Treehouse is my 4th, and so I'm going to share my experiences with you. I'm not going to tell you should do this, but I'm going to tell you what's worked for us and what hasn't. And I'd love to take your questions, and I'd love for you to interrupt me. So if you have questions, just raise your hand during the talk. I'm not going to save time for questions at the end. So what do you see on your screen? Oh, you can see that. Oh, you see an animated GIF. Okay. That's not what I wanted you to see. Okay, so that's right. Okay, first, I'll show you one thing about Treehouse just so you understand what it is. And I'm hoping that this audio is going to be loud enough. And this is a quick 1 minute and 30-second video about what Treehouse is. So, come on, technology.
Understanding technology and being able to control it is now as fundamental as being able to read and write. Treehouse is an online technology school where we teach you everything you need to know from coding and design and iPhone apps and Android apps and business. And the goal is to take you from knowing nothing to everything.
We take a project-based approach, so you'll learn the practical lessons needed to create websites, build mobile apps, and start businesses.
There's so many stories that blow me away. There's a woman that emailed me that was a secretary, and now she's quitting her job to be a web designer. There's a guy that learned iOS and he built an iPhone app, and now he pays his mortgage from that.
We teach our students with these amazing videos, but then we take things a step further with our interactive code challenges and quizzes. This is a much different way to learn than just sitting in a classroom.
We have a mission that we think that matters, bringing education to people that can't get it right now. Instead of going to university and going into debt by $100,000 or $200,000, you could get through Treehouse, in probably $300. And then at the end, if you're looking for a job, we're going to be able to take you and put you in an amazing job.
Okay, so that's what we do, and I think thankfully we've got a great team. Like I said, we're about 70 employees now. We've got about 70,000 students now who are paid active students, and we're growing really fast. So I think that side of the business thankfully is going very well. But what happened is at about 50 people, we started seeing all the usual kind of corporate-y type behavior. And what I mean by that is Treehouse is a pretty weird place. We work a 4-day week, so the office is closed every Friday. We have amazing benefits. You can work from anywhere in the country. We match your 401k. We give you $5,000 to set up your desk. It's an amazing place to work. But we started hearing the usual kind of bullshit from our employees, like complaining or I'm doing something I don't think I should be doing. And I just didn't understand it. I thought, how could they be saying these things? I mean, we're doing something that matters. They have amazing benefits. I just don't get it. And they weren't being bad. They were just acting like employees. And so we sort of went back to the drawing board and thought, well, what is going on here? Why are people acting like this? And And we thought, well, maybe we have too much management in place. You know, we have executives, and then we have mid-tier management, and maybe the people at the bottom are not empowered. And maybe we can fix that. So we thought, what if we remove the bottom layer of managers? What do they do? They pass information around. They help people's careers. They keep people aligned. But if we had a way for people to communicate that meant they didn't have to ask a manager what was going on, and a manager didn't have to tell them what to do, maybe this would be possible. So we started looking into it and found a couple companies like Valve does this, Gore Associates, which has 10,000 employees, does this, and they do over $3 billion in revenue. GitHub does this, and we started asking these companies, how do you do this, and how does this work? And we dug into it, and we proposed it to the company, and the company voted 90% to do this. And they said, okay, yeah, we want to remove all our managers, and we'd like to give it a try. So I'm just going to show you how this actually works, because it sounds great, like no management, but how in the world do you organize 70 people, with 70,000 students in a coherent way without total chaos, right? So the way it works is that we have a simple tool we've built called Flow, and that's what you're seeing here. I'll make it a little bigger. This is just an image of it. It's, sorry, it's hard for me to see the screen because it's so tiny up here. So what happens is nobody reports to anybody. And Kate was actually was on our board. She was at the meeting where one of our investors sort of said, "So I don't get it. Who reports to who?" And Alan and I my co-founder looked at I and we're like, nobody reports to anybody. And they're like, what do you mean? And so we started to dig into that. And the way it works is if you have an idea at Treehouse, you propose a project. So that's what this is. And it could be anything from I want to launch a new course to I want to paint the walls of the office, or I want to try to increase the conversion rate, on paid trial. And you propose it. So give it a name, you talk about what it is, and how you're going to measure success. And then you add people to the team. So you can see right here, someone's added a data scientist and a developer to this project. And then you hit propose. And then the whole company gets an email and says, hey, Ryan's proposed a project. These are the open positions. And if you think it's a good idea and you have time, then you can join the project. And if enough people join the project, then it starts. And there isn't any sign-off. I don't have to get involved in this, and I have no say really in what happens every day. So this is an example. Someone's proposed a project to organize a company-wide hangout that shows what % they have done. And then every day, the only thing you're required to do in Treehouse is submit a status update. So what are you doing on the projects that you've signed up for? And that way, if someone needs to know what's happening with a project, they don't talk to a manager about it. They just go to the project page and they look at what's happening with it, and then they can ask questions accordingly. So that's how that works. It's just another example of a project. And then the other thing we do is we have an internal tool called Convoy. And sorry, this is kind of blurry, but it's basically Reddit, and but it's internal to Treehouse. And instead of emailing people, we basically don't use email at Treehouse internally at all. So if you want to communicate to people in a general fashion, say you want to just say something. Like on here, I posted a tweet that was more of a celebration. Instead of emailing the whole company and saying, "Look at this nice tweet," we posted it to Convoy, and if you find that interesting, you can read it. If you don't care, then you ignore it. The idea is that our communication is pull instead of push. So instead of clearing your inbox every day and doing what other people think you should do in email, you go to Convoy and Flow and you find what you care about and you work on that. And we only use email if somebody has to know something right now. You know, if I need everybody to do something right now, please go do it. That's what email's used for. And this works very well. You know, in a 70-person company, I probably only get about 10 emails a day from the team. And it's amazing. And most of them, you know, I can read real quick and move on. So this actually works, you know, and we've been doing this since June. We've hired a bunch of people since then. We had to let a couple people go because they didn't fit into the structure and they didn't like it. But it's crazy, and I think what I want to talk to you about is that I think it's possible that more companies can operate in this fashion and maintain a startup-like environment even when they get very large. Because what we found is that, you know, we started to scale and all of a sudden we stopped acting like a startup and we started, you know, doing things like reporting and executive check-ins and one-on-ones, and we started doing a lot of work that wasn't work. It was basically logistics, and it appears to be a solution to that. It has its drawbacks, and if you want to know more, I blogged a bunch about this on my blog at ryancarson.com. And yeah, question. Sure. So the question is, do I set any kind of higher goals or any guidance? Yes. So my job as the CEO is really like a shepherd. And so what I do is my co-founder and I set general vision, you know, like, okay guys, this is the market that we're going to go after. This is, you know, how much money we have to spend. And they're very high level things though. None of it is strategic. You know, I don't say, okay, we need to get this product live by this date. And so I actually have very little control over the product roadmap about what happens, but that's intentional. You know, I think that there's this weird cult around the CEO in America that people tend to worship CEOs and sort of believe that, you know, a Steve Jobs figure or, you know, it is the way companies are supposed to work. Whereas what we're trying to do is say, instead of one person being smart, we're going to let 70 people be smart and make their own decisions, and it's working very well for us. So I'll give you an example, and then I'll take more questions. So last week, one of our designers on the marketing team decided to make a change to our funnel, and he increased conversion rate by 47%. And this is a designer. He just made this choice. He pushed it out to live, and it got done. And previously, that would have had to come down, you know, from some chief marketing officer, and it would have had to been delegated, and instead he just pushed it out and it worked. And this stuff happens all the time at Treehouse without any input from me at all. So, question? Right. So the question is, so if there's no management, how does performance review, career advancement, accountability happen? So we have quarterly 360 reviews. And so what happens is you have to review everybody that you work with on a project, and that's anonymous. So we compile a list and say, okay, you worked with these 10 people, you need to go and review them anonymously, and then that feedback is compiled and then fed back to that person. And the review committee, which is me and our HR person and my co-founder, we compile that. And if we think that we need to issue a warning to somebody because they're underperforming, then they get a warning. And if you get a second warning, then you get let go. So the other part of this is that there's nowhere to hide. You know, you can't hide behind a manager. You can't hide. You can't say that you're doing something else that someone told you to do. And if you're underperforming, your peers know it. You can't hide. And it seems to be working. We've had to let 2 people go because of performance problems, but everyone else is performing well. We don't do salary increases in general. You get paid what you get paid. So, yeah. Yeah, you. Yeah.
So let's say that group gets on a project and they launch it out. Like, let's say that there's bugs or things more into the additional feature of the project. Who's responsible for that? How do you actually push it out to say, hey, we got to get on?
Okay. So the question is, what if a project goes out and there's bugs in it, there's problems in it? Who's responsible for that? The people who proposed the project and did the project. And the thing is, when no one asks you to do something, if you fuck up and it's bad, it's on you. And there's no one to protect you from that. You can't say, oh, my manager made me do it, it was a stupid idea and it failed. You chose to do it, and there's nowhere to hide. So I think it's a good thing and a bad thing. It means that you have to be very opinionated, and if you have good ideas, everybody knows it. If you have bad ideas, everybody knows it, but at least they're your ideas and you're choosing it. And there's this weird thing where people act like adults and they do smart things, and if they make mistakes, they talk about it. And I think what we're trying to create is a normal environment where we all act like adults instead of children at work that are being managed by parents. It seems to be working very well. I'll come back to you because you already had a question, if that's okay. Yep. So do we have problems with people trying to kind of step on each other's toes, trying to do other people's jobs? No, because it's weird. We have job titles technically, like I'm a designer or I'm a developer, but the idea is that every day you choose what you think is best for Treehouse. So if you think something is smart for Treehouse and you propose a project and people join you and do it, then it's great. If there isn't this feeling of like, this is my territory, back off, I was hired to do this, because say a designer has an idea that increases conversion rate, but they're not in the marketing team, great, it's awesome. So I think what this does is it removes all of that. It removes this feeling that I've been hired to do a job, I need to protect myself, whereas instead, people propose a project because they think it's a good idea. If it succeeds, then they're validated. If it fails, then they're also validated in a bad way. So it removes any politics. So you've already had a question. I'll come back to you. Sorry. Yep.
So in the case of the designer, right, that you mentioned that rolled this feature out that increased, so let's just say someone else the following day or a week later says, hey, I have an even better idea. It's like, how do you judge which idea, say you roll out with?
Yep. What do you do? So the question is, what if people have opposing ideas and they conflict? It's solved in a lot of, if you have a girlfriend or boyfriend or a husband or wife, when you're trying to decide where to go to eat, and one of you wants pizza and one of you wants Italian or salad. Well, how do you decide that? You talk about it. We have this feeling of like adults figure out things in normal life, and we should let them do that at work. And so usually what happens is people argue and they get really angry about stuff at Treehouse, and then somebody wins. And the right person doesn't always win, or sometimes we get gridlocked and no one wants to make a decision because everyone's upset about something. And it's not clear what we do when that happens. Like I was just having an argument literally 5 minutes before this with somebody about a feature that I think is important. And he was saying, well, that's the designer, the designers, why didn't they catch that? And you just kind of argue about it, and it's messy. But I think that's real, It's okay for people, yeah, you win and you lose, and that's the way normal life works. I don't know why that can't work in the office. So I think I have time for one more, or no?
No, you've got more time. So what if someone proposes a really big idea and you don't want to allocate resources to that project? How do you deal with that?
Well, we don't have the idea. I don't have any ability to allocate resources anymore. So I've got no say. So if someone wants to do a big project and everybody thinks it's a good idea, and the people allocate themselves. So that we don't allocate resources anymore. The way that happens is people join projects because they are a resource. So I really have let control go of larger, initiatives like that, and that's why we hire smart people and we let them make those decisions. So
if they build support for their project and they get it off the ground, they run with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Probably a couple more questions. Yep, there. How do you learn? So how do you learn from previous projects? We're going to introduce the idea of a retrospective, so that as soon as you mark a project complete, that you have to fill out a retrospective and say, this is what we learned, good and bad, and publish those results. So here, yep.
Do you encourage risk? You talked about failure, that's sort of like bad thing, but do you also encourage risk as, take a chance, or is it more like make a mistake, too many of those, you're gonna
So do we encourage risk? Absolutely. The idea, well, we basically don't encourage anything. We basically say, you guys decide what to do. And some people are more risky than others, so I think people naturally fit into a model. People aren't crucified if they make a mistake. I mean, I think the assumption is that we will all make mistakes. So that's fine. I mean, you don't want mistakes all the time, but this is what I'm saying. All this management of people goes away. I don't have to try to make people motivated, or I don't have to baby them and try to make them like their job. They just do what they think is right. And if they're not doing a good job, they figure something out. Or if they're not happy, they leave. So I think it's interesting how if you let people manage their own career, they do a pretty good job of balancing that. So any other questions? Yep.
Just a quick one. I know you said you were giving up a lot of control, but you see this list of projects coming up. When you're strategic, you may have an idea of which one may be really great for the business, but doesn't get a lot of volunteers. Does it just organically die at that point, or do you just
So if I see projects come up and I think one is important but it's not gaining traction, what do? I definitely have influence. I mean, I'm the co-founder and the CEO. So what I'll tend to do is go in and lobby. So I'll go in and talk to people, which is fascinating because I used to boss people around. I used to say, just do that. Sorry, I don't care how busy you are. Get it done. And now I have to go in and be human about it and say, hey, I think this is important. What do you think? And do you have time to do this right now? And actually we have, it's much less stressful. Now we're getting almost as much done at Treehouse, but people are managing their own stress levels because they're determining what they do every day. And so we're actually shipping stuff just as fast, but all the stress kind of evaporated. And I just go in and talk to people. We use HipChat, so I go into HipChat a lot and talk to people and say, what about this? Have you thought about this? Do you know about this? And I kind of connect people a lot. So I probably have to get off stage,
Okay.
don't I?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thanks a lot, Ryan.